Good day, everybody. Ready for more on how to prevent Alzheimer's disease? This is video 254 in the Menopause Education, and it's the 19th video in the Alzheimer's unit. You didn't think the Alzheimer's unit was going to be just a couple of videos, did you? Surely you know me better than that. I want you to succeed at managing your menopause your way. And there's no way you will if you don't get this education on menopause. That's why I repeatedly tell you to watch my videos in order. If you don't, you probably know nothing about menopause. And if you know nothing, you'll do nothing. Unfortunately, that is precisely the situation for the vast majority of women. And I want you to avoid Alzheimer's too. But there's no way you can if you don't know what it takes to avoid it. So today I'm going to teach you how to avoid Alzheimer's by using your brain. Thus far in the Alzheimer's unit, I have taught you all about how your brain works and how it breaks down to result in Alzheimer's disease. I've also taught you about all the risk factors that increase your risk for Alzheimer's disease. Here's that whole list again. Today we're going to focus on just one of those risk factors. It's the second one in the modifiable category of risk factors, low educational level. It's in lavender. Now, you may be scoffing thinking it's a little late to change your educational level, but that is where you're wrong. And I'm going to make sure you are crystal clear on how to use your brain to prevent Alzheimer's right now. So if you have any interest in preventing Alzheimer's, you need to know what I'm going to tell you in this video. So watch it and save your brain. Let's approach this chronologically. We'll start way back when you were just a little kid. Now, most of us have few memories before the age of 4, so we're going to start there. Do you remember what it was like to be a 4-year-old? Well, I didn't know you then. But I have a good idea of what you were like as a 4-year-old. And that's because 4-year-olds are unforgettable. A 4-year-old is probably the most inquisitive creature on earth. There is nothing that doesn't induce a question from a 4-year-old. They ask how, why, what, when, and where about everything. How does a worm turn into a butterfly? Why is the sky blue? What makes my owie hurt? When do grown-ups stop being kids? Where do babies come from? 4-year-olds have more curiosity about more things than any adult can imagine. They have so many questions that they just never shut up. They'll exhaust you with questions. Sadly, most adults don't really answer their questions. Or if they do, they offer hollow answers. When asked, how does a worm turn into a butterfly? They'll answer, it just does. Or when asked, why do I have to go to sleep at night? They'll answer, because I said so. And I won't even touch on what answers they give for the question of where babies come from. But it's a real shame that adults brush off these questions. It stifles the curiosity of the 4-year-old. I think we should do just the opposite. We should encourage it. We should go searching for the answers with the 4-year-old. I think 4-year-olds have the makings of great scientists. But by the time they reach school age, most of that curiosity has been squelched. So you went from being a curious, inquisitive, insatiable 4-year-old to starting school, which was the perfect place to learn some of the answers to your incessant questions. Remember when you were a kid and you went to school? You may have liked school, or you may have hated school, but you went whether you liked it or not. And there were all sorts of subjects you had to take too. Some of them were easy for you, others weren't, but you had to take them all regardless. You might have taken a foreign language as a subject, and you might have been in the band or the orchestra. School was a place that exposed you to all sorts of different subjects, activities, and skills. Did you find yourself liking the subjects that were easy for you and hating the ones that were hard for you? You know, we all tend to like the things at which we perform the best. I've often wondered which comes first, liking a subject or being good at the subject. It's kind of a chicken and egg conundrum. Did the subjects you liked the most lead you to a certain career or job? Were you a music lover who ended up in a musical profession? Were you a natural artist who ended up working in the arts? Were you a science or math nerd who ended up becoming a researcher or engineer? It's easy to think about the subjects you loved. Not only did you take more of them, you also probably used them as launching pads for your adult career plans. I like to think of the subjects that we enjoy as love. You love the subject, you love studying the subject, you love using the subject, and you especially love the way that subject makes you feel successful. It gives you a sense of self-esteem because you're good at it. It makes you feel smart. It helps to create your identity. In essence, it constitutes your comfort zone. But what about the subjects you hate? Do you remember the times you were in a class that completely baffled you? You probably sat there straining to understand every word. There was something about the subject that just seemed so foreign to you. Maybe more foreign than even a foreign language. You probably just couldn't relate to the students who found it easy. Most likely, the mental effort you expended in that one class left you exhausted. You probably felt like your brain was about to explode when you had to tackle that subject. As a result, you hated it. It made you feel so inept, even stupid. So you took the minimal requirements and avoided it thereafter. It was just so far outside your comfort zone that you never wanted to have anything to do with it again. This pattern of exposure to a lot of different subjects, activities, and skills in our youth is very common. But what happened when you finished school? How many new, different, and difficult subjects did you subject yourself to then? It's really odd what we do as we become adults. We spend the first 18 to 26 years of our lives expanding our horizons and exposing ourselves to all sorts of new, different, and difficult things. And then we stop. It's as if we assume that we don't need to know anything else. And yet, at that time, we still have the majority of our lives ahead of us. How many adults do you know who are going to school or learning a new foreign language or learning to play an instrument? See what I mean? In video 105, entitled News versus Olds, I discussed the fact that people don't really want to hear anything new. Specifically, they don't want to be confronted with anything that is inconsistent with their opinion. Instead, they really just want to hear more to confirm their opinion. That's why people choose to watch a particular news station. I use the term olds to refer to information that merely reinforces your already held beliefs. The term news refers to information that challenges your already held beliefs. Education is all about news. It presents divergent viewpoints. It teaches you to open your mind to new possibilities. In this menopause education, I present everything from all angles. I pose a lot of questions, teach you the scientific facts, and let you form your own answers. Many women who watch this YouTube channel knew nothing but thought they knew everything before they first started watching my videos. Maybe you were one of them. And as you learned more and more by watching them in order, you started thinking, hey, wait a minute, this education makes sense. Nothing I've ever heard before made any sense. So you had settled for olds and gotten nowhere with your menopause management. When you discovered this real education, it constituted news, and you became able to use the information to successfully manage your menopause. So real education is always going to present you with news, not olds. The key is to open your mind enough to receive that new information. Have you ever realized that your brain really doesn't like to work? It's probably the laziest part of your body. And that's odd because even though your brain comprises only 2% of your body's weight, it consumes 20% of your body's energy. But despite all that energy consumption, your brain's default mode is on off or lazy. You automatically do everything in your power to avoid using your brain. Think about it. How often do you do math in your head when you have your cell phone calculator handy? How often do you read and edit your writing yourself if your computer has spell check? When you think about doing something, do you prefer to do it the long, hard way, or do you look for the easiest way? Let's say you want to learn a language. Which would be more likely for you? Would you research language schools and classes, enroll, go to the campus, and do all the assignments and homework in class with other students? Or would you download Babbel? How did you go about getting the information you needed on menopause before meeting me? Did you look for a quick fix on the internet? Did you purchase some product that promised magic? And did you feel cheated when you discovered that there wasn't a quick fix solution? Did you scoff at the idea of having to watch my videos in order to get a real education? You see, this tendency of your brain to default to laziness and complacency is a real problem. It is precisely what increases your risk of Alzheimer's. When given a problem to solve, how do you go about doing it? Here's one, try it. A baseball bat and ball cost $1.10 together. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? What's your answer? Did you answer 10 cents? If so, you're wrong. And the reason you're wrong is because your brain is so lazy that your impulsive and immediate response to the problem solving is to guess rather than to take the time to calculate. $1 plus 10 cents does equal $1.10, and the problem does dictate that the bat cost $1 more than the ball. But if the ball cost 10 cents, the bat would have to cost $1.10. And together, they would cost $1.10 plus 10 cents, which equals $1.20. So this violates the requirement that the ball and bat together cost $1.10. So take another look at the question. A baseball bat and ball cost $1.10 together. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? If you take the time to calculate the answer using simple algebra, you get an entirely different result. So let's do that step by step. The question asks how much the ball costs. So the ball is X. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. So the bat is $1 plus X. And the baseball bat and ball together cost $1.10. So X, which is the ball, plus $1 plus X, which is the bat, equal $1.10, which is the bat and ball together. So our equation is x plus $1 plus x equals $1.10. And if you do what you learned to do in elementary school, you rearrange the left side of the equation so that you now have $1 plus 2x equals $1.10. And then you move the $1 to the other side of the equation, which means you now have to subtract it. So our equation becomes 2x equals $1.10 minus $1. Or 2x equals 10 cents. And when you divide the 10 cents by 2, voila, you have 5 cents. So look at the question again. A baseball bat and ball cost $1.10 together. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? Well, if a baseball bat and ball cost $1.10 together and the bat costs $1 more than the ball, then the ball costs 5 cents, which means the bat costs $1.05. When you did it the lazy way, you estimated that the bat cost $1. It doesn't. It costs $1.05. So you see that your brain will always try to do things the lazy way. Now, if you felt clueless as to how to even set up the equation to figure out the price of the ball, then you should go take an algebra class. It will set a wonderful example for your children and your grandchildren. You will be teaching them that you never stop learning. On the list of risk factors, the item is described as low educational level, but that's not really accurate. There's much more to it than that. You can prevent Alzheimer's regardless of your actual educational level. The key is to continue using your brain. You do not have to be a scholarly nerd, and you do not have to have a bunch of degrees. What you have to have are curiosity, motivation, diversity, and determination. So I'm going to discuss each of these. These are the 4 absolutely critical features of education that can prevent Alzheimer's. You have to have all 4. And one of them is more important than the others. Earlier, I talked about the curiosity of a 4-year-old child. What happened to all that? Are you still curious? Do you pose questions about the world to yourself and others? Or do you just accept that things are the way they are without questioning them? You know, my friends are always rolling their eyes at me because I ask so many questions, I pose so many questions. I assume that these are things about which everybody wonders, like, why do we drive on a parkway and park on a driveway? How can something be pretty ugly when pretty and ugly are opposites? Why do people assume they can lose weight in 1 week when it took them 5 years to gain it? How can menopause be the most neglected topic on earth when it affects half of the world's population for half of their lives? And on and on and on and on. But apparently, other people don't wonder about such things. My friends tell me I'm weird. But I think it's weird to accept things without questioning them. Maybe my mind is still that of a 4-year-old. But here's the sad thing. In talking with menopausal-aged women, I often ask them what interests them. I'll say, is there something you've always wanted to do but never had the opportunity? And 90% of the time, they say they don't know. In other words, either they have never been curious about anything, or they've put their curiosities and wishes on the back burner for so long that they don't even recall what they were. This is a sad, sad state of affairs. How can you make it to 50-something and have no idea what interests you? Ladies, please don't stop contemplating the things that interest you. I mean, it's fine to defer them until your children are grown, but now it's your turn. Now you get to delve into all those things about which you were really, really curious. If you can't think of anything, maybe you should befriend a 4-year-old. The key is to never stop being curious. Ask questions, but don't stop there. After curiosity comes motivation. If Instead of answering a 4-year-old with some answer that stifles their curiosity, you suggested finding the answer. The 4-year-old would be thrilled. They would jump at the chance to actually discover the answer. In other words, they would be motivated. What about you? When you want to know the answer to a question or learn something new, different, or difficult, are you motivated? Do you jump into action and start paving the way to make that new discovery? Or does the mere idea of having to learn something new, different, and difficult make you tired? How many new, different, or difficult things have you embarked on lately, or at any time in your adult life? Do you just talk about doing them, or do you actually do them? You know, back in 1995, I was practicing obstetrics and gynecology full-time. I had my own solo practice in the largest medical center in the world, and I was one of the busiest OB-GYNs in the largest medical center in the world. I delivered 30 babies a month, whereas most of the other doctors limited their deliveries to 10 a month. I operated every day, whereas the others operated on only certain days. And I was plenty busy and loved every second of it. But I decided to go to school part-time and get a Master in Business Administration. I didn't want to use it to change my career or anything. I was just curious and motivated enough to actually do something about it. And I remember so many instances when I'd be at the nurse's station writing in a chart, and one of the other physicians there would say, "Wow, I hear you're doing an MBA. I've thought about doing one." And then a year later, that same physician would say, "How's that MBA? You know, I've thought about doing one." And I'd be thinking, well, if you'd started last year when you said you were thinking about starting it, you'd be halfway finished by now. Of course, I never said anything like that, but I just couldn't understand why they would talk about it instead of doing it. So you have to act on your curiosity with motivation. And that leads me to the next critical educational factor for preventing Alzheimer's: diversity. Diversity means that you have to learn new and different things. You can't just learn more of the things you already know. That's why I keep repeating the terms new, different, and difficult. When I tell women that they need to learn new, different, and difficult things, their brain automatically takes them into default mode, and they respond with things like, "Well, I read a lot," or "Well, I still work." It's like they don't get it. No, I say, you have to do new, different, and difficult things. Reading is merely looking at words on a page, which you've done your entire life. Working in your familiar line of work is not new. Neither is it difficult. You have to get outside your comfort zone. Do something that does not come easily to you. Do something that is very foreign to you. Do something that is so hard for you that it makes your head hurt. It has to be uncomfortable, and that's because everything you really want is just outside your comfort zone. Before I ever finished that MBA in 1997, I applied to law school. I asked some of my friends if they wanted to go to law school with me, but they all turned me down. And my medical colleagues thought I was nuts. But I went ahead and started going to law school part-time while I was practicing medicine full-time, and still had a couple of months of overlap between finishing the business school degree and starting the law degree. I didn't want to become a lawyer. I hated law. I thought law was the weirdest thing on earth, but I wanted to understand it. And as much as I hated the idea of ever practicing law, I loved learning about the topic that I found so odd and distorted. And I still find it odd and distorted today, even after having gotten my law degree. But it wasn't about using my legal education. It was about doing something outside my comfort zone. Diversity means that you learn something that's totally different. Diversity means that your learning should not all revolve around the same subject matter. And it means that all your learning does not have to be academic. It just has to be unfamiliar and difficult for you. It can be something in the world of art, music, athletics, anything. It just has to be something that is outside your comfort zone. Go do something that makes you feel like a complete derelict. By definition, it will be outside your comfort zone. And it's probably going to be something that makes you feel like an idiot. That's the price you pay for saving your brain. And finally, we have determination. Determination is where you stick to it even though it's outside your comfort zone. This is where you go to language school the old-fashioned way and feel like a fool when you have to speak like a 2-year-old even though you're the oldest person in the class. This is where you focus not on the outcome, but on the journey. It doesn't matter whether or not you actually master the language or ever speak it. What matters is that you stick with studying it. This is where you decide to take piano lessons, even though you have to get the music in large print so that you can see it. It's where you know you look like an idiot, but you keep trying anyway. Or maybe you start a new business. Do it. This is a fantastic time to start at the very beginning. New projects are good for old people. You have to have the determination to keep your brain from disappearing by virtually using it to do new, different, and difficult things. Now, from those 4 critical educational factors for preventing Alzheimer's, curiosity, motivation, diversity, and determination, which do you think is the most important of all? Is it curiosity? Is it motivation? Is it diversity? Or could it be determination? It's diversity. Diversity is key. You absolutely have to do a variety of different things that are difficult for your brain. Why? Because the only things that really qualify as new are things that are different. And different things tend to be difficult simply because they are outside your comfort zone. This is why one of my favorite quotes is, everything you really want is just outside your comfort zone. So if there was a subject in school that was so difficult for you that it made your head feel like it was going to explode, go take a class in that subject. And if you are terrible at languages, go learn a new language. If you've never tried to play an instrument because you think it's too hard, go take music lessons with some instrument. If you are in the habit of doing crossword puzzles, start doing something else that's harder for you, like Sudoku. And when you start getting good at that, move on to something else. This is the most critical factor because working your brain on one thing does not make your brain better at other things. This is why people who continue to use their brain in only one way will still get Alzheimer's. Using your brain for familiar things will not prevent Alzheimer's. The only thing that will prevent it is using it for new, different, and difficult things. Another way to say this is new projects are good for old people, or new games are good for old brains. And that's also why one of my other very favorite quotes is, the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know. That one just says so much. Now, another way to work your brain is to practice the familiar adage of thinking outside the box. This means being creative. It means taking something out of context and using it differently. You see me do this in these menopause videos with the props I make for you. Did you ever imagine children's toys and fairy tales in the context of menopause? So, how many different ways can you think of to use, say, a pencil? How many different things can you do with a towel? What about problem solving? How many ways can you find to solve a problem? Try this 9-dot test. If I give you this on a piece of paper, how many different ways can you come up with to connect all of the dots by drawing no more than 4 straight continuous lines, passing through each one of the dots only once, and never lifting your pen from the paper. Here's the most common solution. But creativity is all about thinking outside the box. So you might find a solution with fewer than 4 lines. The instructions were to use no more than 4 lines. Maybe you would decide to fold the paper or tear the paper. The instructions did not forbid those things. You can even solve the problem by really simplifying the situation and drawing one thick line with a very thick highlighter through the whole thing like this. The possibilities are quite numerous. The question is, how many solutions can you find? Creativity is something that I discussed in video 246 on normal and abnormal brain aging. Creativity is the ability to see relationships between things that are unrelated. And it gets better with age, but only if you develop it and nurture it. It comes from thinking outside the box. The great thing about using your brain in the ways I've discussed today is that you can start doing it at any age. Just because the risk factor on our list is low educational level does not mean that you're stuck with what you learned in school. No matter what your age, you can improve your brain. Now, think about this for a minute. So much of what I teach you about the beneficial effect of estrogen on your menopause is all about timing. Timing is what the whole concept of the estrogen window addresses. In the case of starting estrogen, the time when its benefits outweigh its risks are somewhat limited for some women. But when it comes to using your brain, there's no time limit, unless you wait until you already have Alzheimer's. Because if you wait that long, you no longer have a brain to use. So that mantra, use it or lose it, is true for preventing Alzheimer's, but you can't use it if you've already lost it. So start today. Start using your brain to learn new, different, and difficult things that are outside your comfort zone. Referring to our brain build-up and breakdown chart again, here are the things that build up if you do what I've discussed today. It covers all the bases. Pretty efficient, isn't it? So get busy, ladies. What you've learned in this video is that you have the ability to prevent Alzheimer's by using your brain, but you have to overcome the default mode of brain laziness. You have to exercise 4 critical features of education to prevent Alzheimer's. 1, you have to have curiosity like a 4-year-old. 2, you have to be motivated to act on that curiosity to learn something new. 3, you have to learn new, different, and difficult things, which is diversity. And 4, you have to be determined to continue learning. If you can't come up with any ideas, just befriend a 4-year-old. That does it for today. Please ponder this video. This one tutorial could be your ticket out of Alzheimer's land. And come back next week for more, because I will talk about that triad of new, different, and difficult some more in great specificity. You need that one in addition to this one. Go to menopausetailor.me to schedule a consultation. Subscribe right here on YouTube and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Bye for now.